The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is The Loudness, where our random, rowdy, and raunchy band of misfits create top 10 lists of life's most insane shit. Be scared. Nothing is off limits. So congratulations.
You just made the list!
I'm the music god, CJ Plain, and this is episode, I don't even know at this point. It's another episode of The Loud List. This is where we find cool and interesting people, and we make lists, top 10 lists that rock, at least for the time being, before we get into a few brackets and a couple other odds and ends that I have planned coming down the road. But tonight, I have this wonderful lady here, there, wherever you see her on your screen, or hear her, because I don't think he uses the video for the podcast stuff. So, anywho, this is Miss Harley, and she's going to introduce herself, because she has not been here before, and she's going to tell you who she is, what she does, and give you a little background. How are you, City?
Hey, I'm good. How are you today?
I am awesome. Very happy to have
finally, with all the chaos that's been going on.
Right.
Hey guys, I'm Harley from the Asylum with Harley and Joker, and also the Mod Squad Network. I host a true crime variety podcast because, well, it's a little bit of everything. And on the Mod Squad Network, we do a gaming show, a horror show, a movie show, and then we go live. And so that's what I do.
Awesome. And I've been on a ton of other shows with this lady, and we've done music, we've done movies, we've done a handful of other odds and ends. And tonight we're going to do a topic that we have not done together yet, and that is country music.
Did you really see Jeremy doing a country music bracket? I think you should set one up, and then we pick that one, make him listen to all that.
I think Jeremy would probably rather run his balls across a cheese grater than do a country one. So I do all kinds of music, as you'll see in the background. You know, and I picked up a new Bob Marley poster today. I couldn't pass it up. We were at Ollie's and it was on the shelf and it was $4.99 and I was like, score. So
not a bad deal.
No, it's the same size as these ones. It's a full size like movie poster one, so it was like, yep, that'll match the one of him playing soccer. So tonight we're going to do the top 10 greatest country artists, and I'm sure, like most other shows, the lists will end up being a mix of both the greatest and probably our favorite. Because I know there's at least one person on my list who probably wouldn't be on other people's top 10s, but he is on my top 10 just because I really, really like him. And I think he is one of the top 10 greatest, even though people say he's not. And those people would be wrong. So as always, we start. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I actually do.
Beautiful.
Well, do you want me to give them to you?
Yes. We start with the honorable mentions before we get to the actual.
Well, my honorable mentions are Garth Brooks, Travis Tritt, Vince Gill, Loretta Lynn, Patsy Cline, and Dolly Parton.
Oh, okay.
I'm old school country.
No, I honestly expected Dolly to be pretty high in your list.
Well, so. Dolly, okay, it was hard because there's so many other ones that I grew up with that are my all-time. So
I get it.
She's like right there because
I think it aired last week. We did me and Freddie did the top 10 celebrities that should run for president, and both of our number ones were Dolly Parton. So I thought it was funny that we both pretty much agreed that
she'd get a lot of votes if she really did.
Yeah. I have long held the opinion that Dolly as the president and Reba as the vice president would make an absolute
powerhouse right there.
Yeah, like you couldn't walk into a room with those two thinking that you were going to get any leg up, that you were going to bully him in any kind of way, or that you were going to get the last word in. You know, like those two.
That's what happens when you get a woman from the South in charge. It don't work like that.
Well, I mean, Reba's from Oklahoma, but
am I.
But I'm saying, like, Reba's got that spirit, you know. And then Dolly, she's smart. Like Dolly's that mountain Southern smart, you know. Like you see her and you don't think, okay, that's going to be a smart woman, but she's got that street smart sense. You know what I'm saying? Dolly's the one you see her and you see the blonde hair and the big boobs, and you underestimate her, and then she hits you with some of that mountain wisdom, and you're just like, oh shit, okay.
Exactly.
There's some learning behind that, hit you with that Beverly Hills Billy, or that Beverly Hillbilly wisdom, that granny wisdom. And that's a great honorable mention. My honorable mentions, I have Alan Jackson, Willie Nelson, and Glenn Campbell. Willie, I've never really listened to his music all that much, but I just kind of didn't feel right doing a greatest list without mentioning him because, I mean, the guy's been around for like 146 years at this point, Alan Jackson, Alan is indubitably, really one of the greats.
It's Alan Jackson. What more can you say?
Yeah. I mean, is there an Alan Jackson song that could be played on the radio that you wouldn't immediately know and sing along with? Glenn Campbell, just because it's Glenn freaking Campbell, man. Like, and Glenn would have been in my top 10 had it not been for who the top 10 is, essentially. I mean, Glenn missed out by,
That's like me with Dolly. Dolly would have been in the top 10, but.
So to kick off the top 10 list, who you got at number 10 and give a little spiel about?
I have John Michael Montgomery as my number 10.
Oh, okay. That's a name I didn't.
Like, I grew up listening to him with my grandfather, so right. He is, well, all these that are on here, they're my go-to country.
John's got a lot of great stuff. Not a name I thought of, but I can see where somebody would, Number 10 for me is Hank Jr. Yeah, Hank probably should have been higher if it wasn't for, again, the people before him. One of my earliest memories is Hank Jr. because my Aunt Nancy was absolutely obsessed with Hank Jr. So you couldn't go anywhere with my grandma or my Aunt Nancy and not hear Hank Jr. Whether it was up north to the cabin, bingo, to the grocery store, it didn't matter. If Aunt Nancy was along, you were going to listen to Hank Jr. So, I couldn't escape him and kind of grew to appreciate him a lot more as I got older than I did when I was a teenager because teenage me was a metalhead and didn't really have an appreciation for that much country. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Number 9. We got number 9.
My number 9 is Toby Keith. Okay, so my daughter growing up when she was little, she would dance all day long to Toby Keith songs with my grandfather. And well, his son, and I don't know if you know this, his son went to Norman North in Oklahoma. And so my stepdaughter went there and he himself donated so much money to that school for just donations because that's where his son graduated from was Norman North.
That's nice.
And so Toby Keith, when he passed away, that was really sad because he was a great man. Like sometimes people thought he was arrogant, but like he really wasn't. That was just his personality he gave off. But a lot of people give off that I'm arrogant, but they're really not.
Unreal. Welcome to California. Wow. I'm going to have to post about that when I get done here. Number 9 for me is Garth Brooks. Not somebody I'm necessarily a fan of, but I do own all of his CDs and pretty hard to dispute what Garth did, and has done in his career. Politics, everything else aside, the man had probably at one point was the number 1 artist on the planet and, still even 20 years removed from when he sort of quote unquote retired, still sells out Vegas shows and all of that. So
he's still a legend. Like, yeah. If you can't not know one of his, like, hear just the beginning lyrics of his song and not know the words to him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Garth is, he really walked that line between like country and like what Bob Seger, Billy Joel, and those guys did, So, I have kind of an appreciation for the Chris Gaines record that he did. I know a lot of people didn't get that. I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I thought it was different and, it was just thinking outside the box. So, number 8.
Okay, so my number 8 came out with the song in 2006, and I'll explain more of this. Okay, my number 8 is Tim McGraw. He came out with My Little Girl in 2006. My daughter was 2 at this time. And my husband, he was getting to know my daughter because me and him met in 2005. So she was 1. And the song came out when she started calling him daddy. And so every time that song comes on, this man's like 6'2", a big guy, a big military guy. But now every time that song comes on, she's 21 years old and he still gets emotional when he hears that song, because that's his song for my daughter, because like my daughter was like his second chance.
Nice. Yeah. I'm not gonna add to that because
Little girls are
yeah,
fun. I
it
know
is.
why you're not going to add to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I seen
If it was any
your
other,
post.
if it was any other time of the year,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I
but
understand.
it's during that 4 days between her birth and her death. So if I try to add to it, I'm just gonna end up crying like a giant bitch. So number 8 for me is George Strait. Somebody who took me a while to kind of gain an appreciation for more. I only knew a few of his songs here and there, but I was at a pawn shop and they had his box set of like the 40 or the 70 number one hits or something that he had. And I bought it. It was only a few dollars. And I took it home and I listened to it and realized that I knew way more George Strait songs than I realized I knew. So, it was like, yeah, okay. This guy has done a lot, and pretty much, I won't say he put Texas on the map, but kind of put Texas on the map as far as,
Mm-hmm.
artists that went outside of Texas and got big. I mean, there's a lot of country artists, Bob Wills and other people that were Texas legends, but they pretty much concentrated on Texas, Oklahoma. George was sort of one of the first to really go global, per se, for lack of a better term. So, yeah, my number 8 is George Strait. Number 7, who do you got at number 7?
Vince Gill. Vince Gill is one of those legends. Well, like my grandfather, you couldn't go anywhere, just like with your aunt, without Vince Gill. And then I've got a few, like the three other ones that are higher up. One of those were not playing, and Vince Gill was him and my grandma's, like they would dance to Vince Gill because my grandparents raised me. So they would dance to Vince Gill at night, and like I have a lot of memories with him. So
Say we have that in common then, because my dad is in his 54th year of driving truck, and once I hit a point where I had to start school, because before that we pretty much just lived in the truck. Dad didn't bother to buy a house after the divorce from my mom. We just we lived in the Peterbilt and traveled. And then once I hit 7, people started asking questions. Why isn't that kid in school? Why isn't he in school? Why isn't he in school? And Dad's like, well, he doesn't need to be at school. I school him. And well, homeschool wasn't a thing at the time. So he tried to make it seem like it was. Their response was, hey, this isn't Little House on the Prairie anymore, about, he's got to be in school. So I pretty much, my dad would come home about once a month off the road, about the end of every third week. He would come home for about 3 or 4 days and then go again. So eventually bought a house, married my stepmom. But during those times between when I had to start school and when he married my stepmom, I lived with my grandparents and they did their job. So yeah, I like Vince a lot. Vince is somebody I respect a great deal. Very underestimated guitar player. You hear a lot of people talk about Vince as a singer and a performer, but you don't hear nearly enough about him as the phenomenal guitar player that both him and Brad Paisley are. So, number 7 for me, I know it's somebody that most people are not going to put on their list. They would be wrong. Probably one of my favorite. If this was a list of favorite country artists, it would probably be in my top 2. But somebody that I listen to religiously is Conway Twitty. I love Conway Twitty. Conway Twitty, even in my metal years, was one of the few country singers that would come on the radio and I just immediately would stop and, whether it was Saturday Night Special or Love to Lay You Down or Make Believe, he just had that commanding voice and presence, man. Like he was a showstopper. And I definitely see why the ladies liked Conway, big hairdo and those suits that he had and that swagger that he had, man, was, big as any arena he walked in. So that's my number 7. Number 6.
okay, my number 6 is Kenny Rogers. You can't go and make a list of country singers who are legends without having Kenny Rogers on there. he is what helped like he's a legend. So he started and helped other people become where they are. And like he's just that's one of my favorites right there.
So that's great because at number 6, I have Kenny Rogers for everything that you said and more. Kenny was the other one, along with Conway, that would immediately stop me in my tracks. You know, whether it was the silly little movies that he did during that time, whether it was his music, Kenny just was the man. You know, again, another one who had just had swagger, and you kind of understand why Dolly felt the way she felt about Kenny. Of all the people she performed
With
with,
that gray beard and the gray
yeah.
hair, like
But I just
even in his
like,
older age, he was still
yeah, like when you hear Dolly talk about the people she performed with, she'll talk about Porter Wagner, she'll talk about this guy and this guy and this guy. But when she talked about Kenny, you could see it in her body language that Kenny held a very, very special place in her heart, And, they did a lot of music together. And yeah, so Kenny Rogers is my number 6 as well. So number 5.
Okay, my number 5 is Reba McEntire. That woman, she with her fiery red hair and her fiery temper. And
Yeah.
not only was she a great country singer, she was a great actress, and she just put everything she had into every song that she came out with. And you could see it in her.
Yeah, you absolutely. Yeah. That's why we were talking before the show started about the show Freddie and I did about celebrities that should run for president. And Freddie and I both, our number 1 was Dolly Parton. And I've long held the belief that Dolly should run as president with Reba as the vice president. And, that's just two women that you would never ever be able to get anything over on, you know.
Exactly.
So, and I believe both of them would, I don't think it would really be about politics for either one of them. It would really just be about that humanity aspect, that just doing what was right all the time, And I don't think they would really take the political bullshit too much. The first time someone started playing politics with them, they would cut them right down in their tracks and be like, "Hey, this isn't about politics. This is about, this is about doing what Grandma said." So my number 5, speaking of number 5s, is to go along with Kenny. My number 5 is Dolly Parton, just because Dolly's the only woman on my list, and rightfully so. I think the first lady of country music, whether you want to call her the godmother of country music, whatever. I don't think you can take any list seriously for country music that doesn't include Dolly somewhere in the top 10. Just a career that is unrivaled in music, in acting, and her humanitarian works, the businesses that she owns,
The
just
fact
all
that she does the books for the kids and all that.
Dollywood. She has her own cooking line. She has her own like food lines now, and they're actually not bad. Didn't realize Dolly could cook, but her shrimp and grits aren't bad. I'm not a big
Hey,
grits.
I've got one of her recipes saved to my phone for my meal prep next week. It's Dolly's chicken and stuffing, and I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, she not bad. I wouldn't put her quite up there with Patti LaBelle on the cooking thing, but that's a really high standard. Like I will
Yeah.
let you know, like Patty can cook. Okay, like there are not a lot of women walking the earth that are up there with Patty, man. Like Patty's that's a bad woman right there. All right, number 4. Who you got at
Okay,
number 4?
my number 4 is Trace Adkins.
Ooh,
Okay,
okay.
so I love him as a country singer, and his songs are catchy. Okay, so when Honky Tonk Badonky Donk came out, my daughter was in elementary school, and every morning before she would get ready for school, you know how they used to actually play country music videos on CMT?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be on every morning before she would get ready for school. And so that was her, like she'd start dancing to that. And then he came out with Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. And so like my daughter remembers us, like Trace Adkins is her go-to. When she hears Trace Adkins, it automatically makes her think of me.
Trace Adkins, the Sir Mix-a-Lot of country.
I mean, and for him being as old as he is, he still looks very good. And
Yeah. He's a big dude. Like I didn't realize
yeah.
how big Trace was. We got to meet him at one of the shows. It was him and Colt Ford were playing together, and I'm really good friends with Cole, as you mentioned by the, Colt Ford tattoos. I'm the only person on earth walking around with Colt Ford tattoos. So we were meeting Colt actually, and Trace was there, and Trace walked up, and I was like, holy shit, like, I didn't realize you were like fucking like Andre the Giant tall. Like, he's like 6'7" or something, 6'8", something like that. And
I mean, and this man donates to like the wounded
yeah,
veterans, and
yeah,
like my husband's a veteran, so that right there takes a big thing for us because he donates to
yeah,
that, and he's he's donates to charities. He's a big humanitarian, and he
yeah,
does so much for everybody.
yeah. That's a very cool thing. I respect Trace a lot. Like Trace is a lot of fun. Trace is one of those guys that never takes himself too seriously. Like, he has serious songs, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. Like, he still has the ability to laugh and have fun. So that's important. Like, believe me, there's a few people in country that take themselves way too serious. Number 4 for me was one of my very first country concerts. My buddy's band won the True Value Country Showdown for the whole entire country, got a record contract, and this guy was one of the judges. And immediately upon hearing my friend's song, said, I want to record that song. And my friend was like, no, that's my song. So it is Randy Travis. But because they had the balls to tell Randy Travis no, Randy actually took them on tour. Him and Tammy Wynette took Romeo Ridge on tour with them, and it was a huge deal at the time because Randy was, on the Forever and Ever Amen tour, so it was at the height of, and Randy's another one. Like, you play his songs, man, and is there really a Randy Travis song that you don't honestly know? Like, like even the religious stuff, you kind of know it. Like, I broke my heart when he had the stroke and all of that, but he's hanging on, and he does.
Even with him having the stroke, he's still going strong, still doing,
Still got that country sense and that sense of humor, and
still goes, and he's going.
yeah, still goes out on tour. He doesn't get to sing anymore, but he has a guy that sings for him and all of that, and he kind of is there on stage with them and whatnot. And I love Randy. Randy is a guy who, if there was any one person in country music that I could meet and just tell him, hey, this is how much your music meant to me, it would be Randy, man. Like, there's so many of Randy songs that, and I
Yeah.
wish I had the talent to sing like Randy, because there's just, on the other hand, is just so much about Randy. Number 3. What do you got at number 3?
I have George Strait as my number 3 for all the exact same reasons. And that's another one of those singers that you didn't get in Grandpa's car without
Yeah.
it being on. And like, he had George Strait CDs in his car. Like, the man didn't know much about CDs, but he had 3 CDs. He had Kenny Rogers, George Strait, and then my number 2.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, like I said, George was somebody that I knew, all my exes live in Texas, and I knew Amarillo by morning, but I didn't realize until I bought like that box set how many songs were
Is it
his
like
that I
a
didn't
a
realize.
brownish color box set that's
I
like
think
this big? Yeah,
yeah,
we
I
have
think it
that
was
box
kind of
set.
tannish. I think it was kind of tannish looking.
Yep,
It's
we
got like
have
the
that
sort
box
of
set.
belt buckle front on it. It's like the
Yep.
50 number one hits or the 70 number one hits or something like that. Like I said, I was at a flea market or something, and the guy was selling it for like $4, $5, something like that. And, I had a
I
whole
mean,
ton.
that's another one of those singers you don't realize how much you know until you start
Yeah.
listening, and
But
then
that's
you're
what I
like,
was
"Oh, that's
saying.
George
Like,
Strait." I didn't realize that.
yeah. As I was listening to it, I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't realize these were George Strait songs. Like, I thought they were just some other random singer or something,
I mean, and then there's so many people who have redone George Strait songs,
Yeah.
and that right there, I mean, just the fact that he's, because they have to get permission from him to redo their song, and the fact that he's willing to let all these people redo his songs, that's something.
Yeah. I'll tell you a guy from Texas who I absolutely love. This is getting off topic, but I told you I'd run it off the rails before we're done. He has a huge love for George Strait. He talks about him all the time. I absolutely love his music so much. It's a guy named Kevin Fowler. There's something about Kevin, man. Like Kevin just has that swagger, and he's got all of the mandatory honky tonk songs and the. So Kevin Fowler and Aaron Watson both are like huge, huge, like for me. Not somebody I would put on top 10 just because they're newer ish, and don't really have the catalog per se. But I got a love and appreciation for artists from Texas and Oklahoma. Cross Canadian Ragweed is another one. I love Cody Canada.
Oh, I like Cross Canadian.
Yeah, I've met Cody a number of times, and Cody really is one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. And his son is a musician like him now, and has a grunge band, and is really a pretty decent musician in his own right. Definitely inherited his dad's musical ability. Number three for me, I know people are going to debate my top three. I don't think there's any denying these are the top three. It's just your personal preference of what order you want to put them in. But number three for me is Johnny Cash. I don't think I have to explain a lot. It's Johnny freaking Cash,
Exactly.
100 plus records.
And when you hear that tone, that voice, it's Johnny Cash.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. It's just the guy who does my tattoos. His son does a Johnny Cash tribute thing, and he's really, really good. Like Matt's son is disgustingly good at doing Johnny. And it was first time I heard him. I was getting a tattoo. In fact, I was getting this tattoo, and he came in and he was like, "Hey, Dad," he's like, "I want you to check this out. Make sure it's right." And he's looking, dan 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 dan, and he started singing, and I just looked over at him like, "Damn, son, like you got that voice down." And he doesn't look the part at all. Like he's got like brownish red hair and all of that. That he wears a wig and all that for the show, but like he looks like Dennis the Menace when he's not in costume. But boy, he's got that voice down, and I was like, "Damn." And he goes, "I'm gonna take this out to Vegas," and I was like, "You need to, son, because you got that down tight." Like, and I know you didn't get that from your daddy because your daddy's a freaking hip hop fanatic. Like Matt listens to like Yellow Wolf and Tech Nine and shit like that. So I know you didn't get it from his daddy. And I was like, your mama must be a country fan or something, because Matt's like, "I listen to country," and I was like, "Bitch, Yellow Wolf is about as country as you get, bro. Like, trust me." I've heard you. Remember, we took a road trip together, bro. You didn't play not one country song in 8 hours on that road trip. And he's like, "That's just what I had on my phone." And I was like, okay. Number two. You got number two.
My number two is Randy Travis. Okay, there's this, besides growing up and that being my grandfather's favorite all-time country singer right there. There's this girl that was on, Facebook Reels, and like, she does TikToks and stuff like that. She's making a cup of coffee and she's singing Randy Travis's songs.
I see that.
And actually, in one of the videos that she does, she got Randy Travis there with her because he found her, and like he's promoting her now because that girl's like absolutely really good at singing. And like,
is she the one that always does the singing when she's doing the coffee?
Yeah. She makes the coffee and she's singing, and Randy Travis was always her go-to songs.
Yeah.
And like, she'd hit the notes perfect. And in one of the videos, he's there with her. And like, for that man being as old as he is still going. And even with the stroke, he's still in the wheelchair, still going, still putting it out there, still supporting his fans, still supporting people who's coming up in the business. And he's always been like that.
Yeah, he has. When Romeo Ridge, when they were in the Two Country Showdown, they were from Lapeer, Michigan, which is a small little country town up in the thumb. And they were really good. I mean, they drew huge crowds in Lapeer. And when they entered this contest, they didn't expect to go a long way in the contest. And they kept getting further and further and further to the point where they won the state of Michigan. So they got the call that, okay, the winner from each state, we're going to fly you to Nashville. And then we're going to, whittle the 50 down to 15, and those 15 will take part in a TV show. It was almost like American Idol, kind of. And those 15 will go to this amount, to this amount, to this amount, and then the final 5 bands will be in the finale, and there'll be judges. Randy was one of the judges, And I remember there was a band from Oregon, a band from Vermont, there was a band from Georgia, and Romeo Ridge was one of the bands. And their first two songs were really good. It got them through to the final round. And I knew what they were going to play in the final round. They have this ballad called My Heart's on the Table. And man, it's just one of the most heart-wrenching country ballads you ever hear. I mean, it's Randy Travis meets Kentucky Headhunters, basically. And they got to the final with the band from Oregon. And when they walked out, I knew what they were going to play. And as soon as they played that song, you could see Randy's face just be like, okay. And they finished, and Randy's like, I want to sing that song. And Tim was like, nope, that's my song. And Randy was like, okay, like you just told me no. And it probably would have been a massive, massive song for somebody like Randy. But Tim has stood to this day by the fact that that is his song. It's very personal to him. And,
Because
sadly,
Randy's known for his ballads. Like,
so because of that fact, Randy said, hey, I'd like you guys to go on tour with me. So they went on tour for like 10 or 11 dates and opened for him and Tammy Wynette, and sold out shows everywhere. And Randy just loved them. Like Randy would, the very first night they played, the very first night of the tour they played was in Flint, which is, the big city battle up here. And Randy, as the headliner, came out and personally introduced Romeo Ridge as the opening act. I mean, that's extremely rare for the headliner.
Especially for Randy Travis to do it. Like,
yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the headliner to come off the bus to personally introduce the local opening act.
I mean, and like here at the last CMA Awards, Randy Travis was there.
Yeah.
Like, he still goes to these, and they like had him singing with the person who was singing. And
yeah, I think that kid's name is Jace something.
Yeah.
But he's a great performer. But yeah, I love Randy. I love everything that Randy is as a person,
like,
as a
that's
performer.
He would have been my number one if it wasn't for the fact of my number one.
Understand. My number two, Waylon Jennings. One, because one of the only shows we watched religiously. So my grandfather has a rule. It didn't matter what you wanted to watch. If Andy Griffith or Michael Landon were on TV, that's what you were going to watch. So whether it was Highway to Heaven, Andy Griffith Show, A Little House on the Prairie, whatever. If a show was on with one of those two, that's what you were watching. So the only TV show we really got a say in watching that we watched religiously was Dukes of Hazzard. So, to this day, just a good old boy. It's one of those songs you just immediately go back to that time period of laying on the floor in the living room in front of the great big giant Zenith, TV
Box
that was
TV,
as big as that was as big as a Buick,
Before being an adult came and
you had to like physically turn the channel.
Where
took 374 men to move it, to dust it. And my grandfather still has that old Zenith TV sitting in the corner. Didn't have the heart to get rid of it. It finally quit working.
My grandma had that one, and then had like the newer one on top of it because that one went out.
I was gonna say my grandfather, until 2007 that TV worked. He bought it in 1872, and it worked until 2007. And when it quit working, he didn't have the heart to get rid of it. Now he has a new TV, a big screen TV, and it sits on top of the TV. So,
that's how my grandparents did it.
Yup. My grandfather is throwing a fit right now because AT&T is doing away with landlines. And my grandfather, who does not swear that often, when they called him to inform him that he had to get a cell phone, I'm 98 goddamn years old. The fuck am I supposed to do with a cell phone? I've had this goddamn number since 1951. Well, there's not enough, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. You can take my landline when I'm dead. And she's like, well, sir, June 25th, 2025, all landlines are dead. How the fuck am I supposed to call? And she's like, get a cell phone.
We still have a landline with Cox.
Do what?
We have a landline with Cox because my husband refuses to use cell phones.
So AT&T, I don't know about all of them, but AT&T is doing away with all of their landlines. So my grandfather is up in arms that at 98 years old, he has to get a cell phone in case something happens. I know he'll never talk on it in case unless something is like tragically wrong, this man is never going to talk on his cell phone. But, it's just funny that at 98 years old, he's getting his first cell phone. So we're at number one. Who do you have at number one?
Okay. So my number one is Shania Twain.
Okay.
Okay, so my wedding song that I walked down the aisle to was When You Kiss Me by Shania Twain. And she has all those songs for that are like empowering to women, and I absolutely love her. And she has a song called Nah. And that song is like for my husband's ex, and like if you listen to that song you'll understand why. But my wedding song that I walked down the aisle to was hers.
Nice. Shania is somebody that I can honestly say I probably know two songs by her. But at the same time, during that period, her and Garth Brooks had an absolute stranglehold on the country music scene.
It was her and Garth.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if you heard a lot of her songs, just like you said, you would know more than what you think you do.
You know, I
I mean,
you can't deny
she's
what she's
still,
done.
for her being as old as she is,
Yeah.
she still rocks the little skirts, still looks really good. And like when she did I Feel Like a Woman, she was rocking that long suit looking dress, and she just
Right.
empowered woman.
Yeah. All right. My number one was immediate for me. Like, I couldn't think of another person who is more country than this guy, who exemplifies country. And I'm of the mind that if you went to every single person that we have in our top 10 list and say, who's the greatest country singer of all time, pretty much 98% of them are going to say George Jones. I mean, I know for a fact that Trace, George Strait, Vince, Dolly, Randy. I know Randy would, because Randy actually said it in concert. He performed, and the race is on, and he performed that live, and he was talking about, how George was his hero, and I wish I was 1/100th of the performer this man was. And I was kind of like, pretty damn good there, brother. I might say 1/10. I don't know if I'd go 1/100th, but I know you're doing it for dramatic effect, but George is just one of them guys, man, that's been around forever. The stories that are associated with him are as legendary as the music he's performed. Not always in a good way. Obviously him and Tammy had very, very tumultuous times
You
together.
get the good and bad with every country singer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of them guys, man, that they've made the movie about Hank Jr. They've made the movie about Johnny Cash. They're working on a Kenny Rogers one. The fact that they've never made a George Jones biopic is kind of crazy to me, because I mean, other than Coal Miner's Daughter, he wasn't exactly portrayed in the best light in Coal Miner's Daughter, but the fact that they've never done an actual true biopic on George Jones seems kind of strange to me. Because it seems like it would be,
maybe the family not wanting to give the actual rights over to it.
Yeah, that might be. I mean, they might not want to.
Because they don't want the negative stuff to come out.
Yeah, they may not want to get into the whole,
the dirt behind the.
Yeah, you start digging too much in the dirt, and you start uncovering things that maybe aren't as well known.
Skeletons we don't know about.
Yeah. So, all right, that is our top 10 list. As always, we do lists. If you want to be a part of this show, or you want to be on Harley Show, where do they contact you to find your show, to contact you about being a guest on your show, or all of that fun stuff?
Well, they can find me on Facebook and Instagram, either The Asylum with Harley and Joker, or you can find me as Harley Inghram. But we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. We're on everything.
Beautiful. And as always, for this show, Music God Rocks or Riot on the Set media@gmail.com is where you can find us. So to end it all, be well, treat each other with kindness, and remember, laugh. Nobody gets out alive.